Hello, my name is Felix. This is the second devlog for my game, HyperHam Delivery Company. You are this little hamster, you roll around in a hamster ball, you can slide down hills really quickly, and you use that to go deliver carrots to other little hamsters rapidly. So, with these devlogs, which I can only do for the next few weeks, I'm finishing this project up pretty soon, but I wanted to do this kind of towards the end. What I hope to do with these essentially is just show you, here's what I select for my tasks each week, my thought process about going into them, like how I sort of plan out what I'm going to do for each one, any problems that I run into while I'm implementing solutions, and then what the sort of result of my work is. So a couple of weeks ago, I rebuilt my whole game map. Looks like this now. It used to just be one big island. It didn't have great guidance. I had trouble sculpting out the terrain in a way that you could go kind of in any direction to reach, because you pick up a delivery from one of these delivery centers and then it chooses a random hamster on the map, and that's the person that you deliver it to. So in that old island, you could go kind of any direction, and it was hard to identify, like, oh, this is the hill that I want to hit in order to get a bunch of speed and go in the right direction and stuff. So by breaking it up into a few different islands, I could have more control over the paths. So it's a little bit more linear, but it's hardly recognizable for the player. The benefit of it is that they're more easily able to recognize which line they want to take to go as fast as possible and as enjoyable as possible. The feeling of flowing through the hills is good whenever you kind of get that skill with it. It also helped make each area feel a little bit more distinctive. Like, you can kind of remember that, like, oh, there's the cool crater over here. This one's in sort of a crescent shape. And then this one has these prongs over here that you can kind of jump between. So it's just it's a little more distinctive than the old island. One of the things that I lost by doing that was foliage. I used to have ferns and stuff everywhere. But the foliage that I had, like those ferns, just having them everywhere didn't look really good. So I'm gonna focus on putting foliage back in this week, and the first thing that I'm gonna do is actually go find some better foliage assets that I can use and some more varied ones. Because nothing needs to be super like stylized or distinctive for the foliage, I'm just gonna go find some good free stuff on the Unreal Marketplace. And then once I've done that, then I can start getting it into the level. So I ended up deciding to use this nature package, mostly because it had like a reasonable number. There are some other free packs that have come out in the monthly content that just had such a high number of assets that I didn't want to download and sift through all that. But this has a pretty reasonable amount. So and it's got this cool little showcase area where I can see what all the different materials are. I started setting up one of these. This is a landscape grass type, something like that. But yeah, I'm going to go through and add this to my material, to my landscape material, as the tutorial that I was watching and using for my landscape material describes how to do that. So, and I'll link that because it's a really useful tutorial. That's how. Gosh, now I can't find the map. Oh, you know what? It's probably in this like rolling blueprints folder. Yeah, that's how all of this transition between like dirt and grass and rock is done automatically in the landscape material. Let me. Landscape. Yeah. So somewhere in here, there's a way to get some foliage only spawned on the grass part of it. So I'm gonna learn how to do that and then see how just one of those grass meshes looks. Okay, record scratch. At this point in my recording, it just like the frame rate dropped out horribly. It's pretty much unwatchable. It's super, super choppy. So I ended up just deleting it. So from where that was at, I was showing the how I'm going to implement the foliage. I went through and I did that. I used a bunch of different meshes to get this really cool, like, kind of varied foliage going around the map. And what else did I do? I remade the delivery center because it was not great. It was really hard to navigate around. To get up onto. There were like these weird little ramps, so I remade that mesh, and the point that I'm cutting back into now, I had placed all those meshes, and then I was gonna go through and kind of like redo the terrain around them so that they look correct. So apologies that the video is randomly like truncated. Hopefully I'm planning on ordering a video capture card, just a cheap one, since I can't put a ton of time, energy, money into these videos, but hopefully it'll make the future ones a little bit better, and I won't have to record at such a low frame rate either. I figured that would help low resolution. I was recording at a low resolution, hoping that would help with the frame rate, but it didn't. Sometimes it works, sometimes it didn't, so hopefully it'll be better. Okay, so I got these things placed. I got the terrain around them kind of moved into a good place, and then I got food poisoning, and now I'm back and better and safe. So, thing I remember that I need to do, make all the terrain under the delivery centers dirt and or rock, so that little bits of foliage don't come through them like this. And done. Easy. Not really easy, it's kind of a pain to do this by hand, but I will say, man, having the vegetation in just makes this look so much better, and it makes the process of going through and doing these terrain edits like feel really, really nice. Like if I if I like sculpt the terrain around here, for instance, the trees can like move on it dynamically, and it just feels really satisfying. Like yeah, it feels like sculpting the terrain and having everything move around. It feels great. Anyway, next thing that I need to do is place hamster houses. So I do have a bunch of other house meshes that they work. They're alright. You can see, I'll zoom over to this one. Maybe? I'm having so much trouble. Oh, because I'm in the sculpt mode. Oh, I hope that I didn't just like, oh yeah, I shouldn't have sculpted. Anyway, I have these cool little hamster houses. I had placed them very haphazardly before, but similarly to my trees, I realized, oh, you know, it would be good to place these near the destinations, you know, the hamsters that are waiting deliveries, and that'll just be a little bit better. So I'm going to do that first, and then if the world still feels a little too sparse, then maybe I'll put some in kind of more places. Okay, so I got little houses next to all of the destinations, and then I also just have some more kind of chilling out around the world. So it feels a little bit more populated. Something I realized while I was doing that was that I need to clean up my outliner, which I'll get to in a minute. If I get rid of the ocean here, there's still a lot of grass under the water that a lot of it has foliage, so I'm gonna have to go through and paint over that with dirt or stone in order to make it so that in certain places, let me turn this back on, there isn't like brushes, shrubbery coming up through the water, because yeah, not ideal. Okay, so doing all of that painting by hand was becoming a pain, so I bit the bullet and just experimented until I figured out. I looked at one tutorial, another one that I'll link for materials, that describes how to do height. So I worked that in. Getting it to work with the grass layer was really, really confusing, but I have a shoreline basically that I can set with the parameters, so I didn't have to go through. I replaced all of the like fills. I just filled pretty much everything with or repainted the shores with the generated terrain, so that I preserved, you know, my gravel under these little guys. I actually might not have done that for this island yet. I think I did. Yeah. But as you can see, now it's just dirt and rock. coming up on those shores, and that's the same for over here, and there's no grass coming up on them. So kind of solved my problem of having, you know, shrubs and stuff underneath it, poking out from underneath the water. And if I change this later, right, if I raise or lower stuff later, I don't have to go back in and redraw those shores. They're just there by default. So that took a little while longer than expected. Actually, I'm not sure. Oh yeah, so I was gonna add, I was gonna make some more like kind of iconic not landscape, what's the word I'm looking for? Some landmark buildings. So I have an idea for sort of a little tower with some like a hamstery looking tower that I'm going to make out of BSP. I'm probably going to Blender to do a collision for it, and then I'll put that in. Just some things to make the different areas a little bit more distinctive and help the player remember, like, oh, this area, you know, has the cool tower in it. So yeah, I'm going to do that. Get to do a little art. It's fun. Okay, so I used some BSP brushes and threw this together. It actually took me a painfully long time, mostly because of all these like weird little pipes, but it works pretty well. I just did a really basic collision generation on it and plopped it down. I'm thinking about, I might add some more around. I want to, you know, keep it kind of iconic, you know, so the player kind of associates specific areas with it. But I might be able to get a little bit more mileage out of it. Maybe over here or something would look nice. Also, a funny thing that happens when you make stuff out of BSP is it tends to put the pivot point in a really weird location, but it is what it is. With this, I was thinking like, oh, it's kind of like a little lighthouse. And I guess the funny part is that like, this is a totally walled in area, but hey, you know what? People will see it, they'll be like, water. It'll just make sense, I'm sure. No one will question it. So, next on the docket, I had making another one, like some sort of like windmill. I don't have a great idea for it though. I don't know. And I'm not sure how much work I'm gonna get done, so yeah. That's for now, and then I'll see if I'm gonna do more stuff. All right, so I moved this a little bit because it was especially weird in here. What else did I do? I made a little bug fix where by being inside this trigger, it was triggering the ground check for the hamster, so you would fall super slowly while you're in those triggers because it thought you were on the ground. And I also increased the prices of the upgrades a little bit, and then decreased the price of the rent money that you have to get once you've purchased all the upgrades. This is because people were getting all the upgrades quickly, and then it took quite a while for them to actually get all of the rent money. So I figured like this would pace out the game a little bit better. Just give people a little bit more time where they work up the money to buy all the stuff, and then once they have it all, you know, it doesn't take a super long time to get the rest of the money after that. So, that being said, the last thing that I was going to do, that I had planned on doing, was creating some like windmills. I think that would look cool. I think they would be pretty neat and like iconic. They would kind of help, you know, the player remember wherever I put them. That being said, I don't have a ton of time tonight, and I want to relax a little bit before my week starts tomorrow. So, next week, I'll be doing this again. Hopefully, again, I'll condense things down and talk through stuff faster and be more concise. I have planned, I need to kind of improve the effects of like going fast. So I want to have things like screen shake, controller rumble, some change of the sound, maybe it like sort of pitches up or down or something like that. Just more things to improve the feel of like going really fast down hills and, you know, over jumps and stuff like that. So that's the main thing. I also have some other smaller things like improving meshes, which I might then get to do the windmill if I have time, and working on sound effects. So that's what I'll be doing. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for next week.